And good afternoon. Welcome to the Northwest Showcase here on 93.9 KPDQ. Our show is being sponsored by Day Chiropractic this afternoon. That means we have Dr. David Day in studio. Phone number, by the way, for Day Chiropractic, 503-760-7572, 503-760-7572, and easy to find at 3758 Southeast 122nd Avenue, just south of Powell. They're right between Powell and Foster.
Yeah.
Dr. Day, welcome.
Thank you. It's so hard to believe that we're still, isn't that amazing? That location we started in 1997, and I've been practicing for 11 years before we moved into our current office.
Wow.
And what a joy. It's just been such a privilege to serve this area. 30-some years. Boy, it makes me feel old. But, I guess the exciting thing is I love going to work. I'm as excited to show up every morning as I was when I started, because we're seeing all sorts of wonderful things happening in patients, and it's kind of fun actually going in, having standing on some experience. It's fun when you're fresh out of chiropractic college and you want to go and save the world.
Right.
But things don't necessarily go the way you expected after reading the books and things. And so now, when I see a patient and we get a visit and talk, and I approach things a little bit differently. I think it's a little bit more reflective. I like to hear the stories of how they came to be, the way they are when they show up, as opposed to just jumping right in. Sometimes I kind of want to get a sense of the patient, and there's a lot of wonderful chiropractors. Why did you pick our office? What is it about what you heard about us or something like that made you pick us?
Yes.
And then we can find out kind of what's motivating them, and then what do you really want to see accomplished? How can we help you? And it's really kind of a fun journey that we go on with each patient, and it's a little bit different than because I also have the realistic that I can't necessarily help every single person who comes through my doors. So I have to be real careful and say, well, is this a case that I'll be able to help? And you really want to work at it and honor that with that approach. And so it's really, really exciting.
Do you think that because you've been a chiropractor for so long that every year you mature just a little bit as far as when you're out of school, you're going to do all these things and you're going to change the world, and as time goes on, you realize that it's more about caring for the person, their feelings, their emotions, and
I feel more, and I would say now that I'm a grandpa, it's probably a similar thing that happens. When our kids are little, we're just hanging on for dear life, trying to keep the kid alive. I figured if Karen was gone and I had our kids, and if they were still alive when she came back, it was a success. You know what I mean? But I watch now as we think and look at our grandson and play with him, and I see this in other grandparents. They're just captivated and enraptured by their grandchildren. Their grandchildren can do no wrong, and they're the cutest and the most expressive, and all that sort of stuff. So in some ways, I kind of look at our patients kind of that way. It's kind of I can't believe they pick our office. I'm just so excited. And even the little things when they say, I had a good night, I could sleep good. I get all excited about that. And I think, well, maybe in years before, I would have assumed, everyone will get better. That's going to happen. Now I realize, what? As I'm getting older, also I'm finding a lot of my patients are getting older, and some of the things that used to be really easy, as people get older, their challenges are a little bit more substantial. And, while, maybe they used to bounce back real fast, now they're not bouncing back so fast. So I have to pay attention to this, and I have to say, what, this patient I've cared for 20 years, maybe I need to change it up a little bit for this patient, because their body is not the same as it was 20 years ago. So, how do I how do I stay engaged in this process and help these patients continue on their journey of healing? And so that's so it is interesting. I think I am very different. And I also, it's when someone says, it's a long story, I put my pen down, right? I want to hear, that's the one I want to hear. Where before, I would have said, okay, well, never mind, we'll move on, because I wouldn't want to have taken the time for the long story. But often a long story is not necessarily long, but it's where the significance is. And so I found that that's where I go now. And if a patient volunteers that, it's like, let's delve into that.
Yeah, I think it was Casey Kasem. Because I'm in radio, one of the people I admire was Casey Kasem, or I still admire him. But I think he said that you're never too old to learn new tricks, and as soon as you say, hey, I don't need to learn anything, then it's time to get out. And I see in you that you're constantly bringing new things to the table. You're constantly refreshing your mind, and I think that's awesome.
Oh, and we're going to talk about that today, about this, the whole concept of neuroplasticity, and the fact that your brain can rewire itself. Because when I was in chiropractic college, I mean, we're talking back in the 80s, and we were taught that the brain that you have and the nerve system that you have is largely developed, as fully developed as it will be. And then by the time you get into your late teens, from that point on, it's nothing but a decline. That all the pathways that it could be are already formed and all that sort of stuff. Well, now we know that's just not true in the brain, and especially with the work I've done with this functional neurology and things like that. It's like, oh no, we're just scratching the surface, and the brain has a tremendous capacity to rebuild itself and rewire itself and use alternate pathways if need be and all those sorts of things. So that's one of the things that gets me excited as a chiropractor, because you can imagine what's happening is I'm getting more complicated cases coming to the office now, and often people have they've been down the pathway getting the traditional answers and so forth. Okay, well, when that's not satisfactory, or you know in your heart that something more has to be there, but trying to find a doctor who will look at you or listen to you or think it's not all in your head or will actually pay attention to some of the things you're telling them, it's hard for patients to find that. And so often patients will realize that if they have that sort of, they want someone who will listen to them and will actually honor what they're telling me and help it drive what I do and what I investigate. They then find themselves in my office, and it's a wonderful, wonderful privilege to be able to help people and to kind of think, like you're saying, we try to stay fresh. We try to take this experience. A couple years ago, I bought a brand new X-ray machine. Well, the one that I had was perfectly fine. And what I've observed over the years is often doctors, after they've been in practice a while, they kind of start thinking about retiring, or they kind of get their heads kind of, you've done it a lot, so they kind of know what to expect. And you kind of get the feeling that you're kind of getting kind of what they've always done, sort of a thing. So I could have, that X-ray machine that I had could have lasted me really till I retire. But what I've realized is having a digital X-ray machine is an amazing thing for me as a practitioner, for instance, because what it does is every picture that I take, it shows on a screen. So I can look and see how I did taking that picture. Like if I'm taking an open mouth, for instance, I want to see, let's say you're having headaches, or you're having something that's really, or your brain you're in a brain fog. Something's not going right. Your thinking's getting bad. You don't have the energy you used to. Well, one of the important things to do is to look at that upper cervical alignment, right under your skull, right? Well, so the only way you can do that is do what's called an AP open mouth. So the patient has to stand, they feel like they're in a dentist's office, open their mouth, and then I have to aim that X-ray through the opening, so the upper teeth are above it and the lower teeth are below it, so I can see bone 1 and C2. That's the only way to do it.
Right.
But everybody's head is different. So some people's skull comes down lower, some people have little thick heads, and their necks are stout. You go, well, okay, so you take the X-ray and then you go look and you go, if I could tip that head about 15 degrees more, maybe turn a little bit, I could see that better. Okay, let's do that. And I can do it, and then I can see if we did it. Now, before, what would happen is I would take a 3-view cervical, so I'd take a side one and take an open mouth and a front view and then the low back. And all right, good, and the patient would come back a day or two later, we'd have the X-rays, and we show them the X-rays. Well, now I can actually see if that AP open mouth is showing me what I needed to show me. Because you typically then wouldn't have the patient get in a gown again and say, well, if it was just a little different, I can see it better. Before you would say, well, that's, it's good enough. We'll make do with that. No. Now I can make sure that I can see what I need to see. If someone has a scoliosis, well, before it wouldn't make any difference. But what we know now is if you have let's say you've got a right thoracolumbar scoliosis. Okay, when I take your front picture, I'll see that. Well, if it goes to the right, I'll have you turn out, look out the window like I always do. However, what do I do if you have a left scoliosis? I will do it differently. What will I do? I will have you turn and look at me, not look out the window. Well, why would I do that? Because of the way the X-ray beams go. I will see the disc spacing a lot better, and it will be a better picture. It shows me what I need to see better because I thought while I was taking, so when you look at one picture, it will then form and frame how you take that next picture. Nobody else is doing this. I mean, if you go to radiology, the doctor order you get 2-view lumbar and get they'll just order some X-rays. Well, I take X-rays and I want to see what I need to see, and I want to get the best X-ray I can, right? If you're going to pay for these X-rays, let's make them good, right? And I will actually go over them with you. And so a lot of the patients say, oh man, no, you just tell me what's wrong. And I say, well, listen, I can tell you what's wrong, but I want you to understand what's wrong and why you're having problems. And I want you to understand why what I'm going to do is going to, how is it going to address those problems, right? Because most doctors aren't doing that. They'll just give them some pills, or they'll say, oh, you need to exercise more, or whatever. I don't know. It's crazy. So anyhow, so that's, so as I've been doing this, I try to think about this, and
Wow.
and it affects everything.
Yeah, you make me excited. My big question, that's a very expensive piece of equipment, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, that's something like you set aside money for.
Well, that was $65,000 to put that thing.
Oh my!
And you think, well, and I replaced something that was perfectly good, right? But I realized, you know what? If I were starting my practice today, what would I do? I would buy a digital X-ray machine.
Yeah.
So what if I'm going to be practice another 10 or 20 years?
Sure.
What should I have for my patients? I should have a digital X-ray machine. I mean, the X-ray exposure, for me to get an X-ray, just in my career, 37 years, it takes me 1/4 of the X-ray exposure to you to get your pictures now than it did when I started my practice in 30 years. And the digital, that cut it in half. So it's worth it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right. So we'll talk about chiropractic, obviously,
Yes.
on our show. And Dr. Day doesn't mind if you have a question,
Right.
and you want to jump in. We would love to hear from you this afternoon. We're live in studio,
Yep.
and you can always call us up. Our phone number here in the Portland area, 503-786-9390, 786-9390 in Portland. And outside of the Rose City, toll-free 1-800-845-2162. Dr. David Day is here of Day Chiropractic.
Yep.
By the way, if you don't want to be on the radio, you just want to make an appointment with Dr. Day's office, you can always call 503-760-7572, 760-7572.
And tell them you heard us on the radio.
Yes.
And it's $65, and that'll cover the X-rays and the full exam and everything. So just let them know that, and we'll get you scheduled.
All right, that's awesome. Okay, so what's new today?
So there's a lot new.
I know. It's like asking
Okay,
you,
so-
what do you know?
All right. So when we get started on our, I've got a couple things that you might be interested in. I went ahead and took a couple pictures that I posted on Day Chiropractic's Facebook page. So, because we're going to be talking about some pieces of wood that I brought, what they are. If you're kind of curious about what we're talking about, if you go to facebook.com/daychiropractic, you'll see two pictures. One is a picture of these pieces of wood that I brought into this station with me. Another thing is a picture of a bunch of kids playing musical instruments. And so one of the things that's happened to me.
I thought you were gonna like panel your house, or maybe put up some new paneling in the basement, and then you have your grandkids or something.
Right. So as our listeners who know me and know the journey I've been on, about 10 years ago I discovered bluegrass music, and it has been an absolute joy for me, and then with my brothers. In fact, the Day brothers, we did a tour this summer. We now have 3 albums. We just did a gospel album called Day by Days, and if you enjoy this type of music, I'd encourage you to get them. So I've got a bunch of them at the clinic. You can go to Amazon, iTunes, whatever, and download them. So the Day by Days is the gospel. I wrote on the album called What Were You Thinking? I ended up writing that song, and it was about us growing up in kids. In fact, I just posted on YouTube a video of us boys singing this at my mom's retirement community. And so my mom is sitting there in the front, so you see her head there. And then Mr. Eckelkamp and his wife were sitting right next to Mom. So those 3 old people that you see in the front, those were what this song was written about. So it was just hilarious to sing.
And she's the lady that coined the phrase.
What were you thinking? You mean, or
no, the have a good day.
Have a good day and be a good day. Oh man, I roll. Yes, that's our mom.
Let's take a very quick break, and then we'll come back. You tell us what's new, because I love when we have Dr. David Day in studio. Day Chiropractic. Remember, he has a $65 special right now. What is that?
That gives it full set of X-rays, thermal imaging, surface EMG, heart rate variability to measure the level of stress in your body. We can quantify it and tell you how you're doing.
All right. The phone number to make an appointment with Dr. Day, 503-760-7572. 503-760-7572. Tell them you're listening to KPDQ and get that special deal. And this is the Northwest Showcase 93.9 KPDQ.